Welcome to Ladies-in-Law, where real-world advice meets professional wisdom and empowerment in realms of law and business. Your hosts, Lisa Goucher, Dawn Smith, and Kellye Raymond, bring you innovative strategies, practical guidance, and inspirational stories. Join us as we inspire and support women to thrive in traditionally male-dominated fields. We're here to promote inclusivity and provide practical advice for success. Hi, Lisa here with Dawn and Kellye. Today we are talking about relationships in the workplace, workspace. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn to get started because she's got a pretty good size firm. So Dawn, roll it out. How does it work to have relationships within your firm?
Usually not well.
Really? Tell me how you feel.
No, I just think that there is really a fine line on that. And we spend so much time together at work. I think relationships come about naturally, right? Because most of the time we're spending more time with the people that we work with than the people that are at home.
So true.
So I think these relationships happen very naturally. But the problem is how that impacts the employer. Okay, so there's a couple of different scenarios. So sometimes we hire someone and then hire their spouse afterwards. That is complicated.
It's a risk for sure.
It's a risk, right? Because sometimes it doesn't work out with that employee, and then you have maybe the other employee that's killing it, doing great, and there's just bad feelings there. So it's complicated.
Yeah, I would agree because at my previous firm, we actually had 3 different couples meet and marry at my firm.
That's so funny. 3?
Yeah, 3 out of like 60 people. So, then it starts turning into, that environment. But fortunately, it did work out, like I would say 90%. But that 10%, I got to tell you, it is challenging when there is an issue with one of them, just like you just said, because, it's going to affect their entire family. But we didn't ever say in policies and procedures that it wasn't allowed. But I think, and in the beginning when everything's good and they've met and, they're flourishing and love is flowing, like it actually furthers what's going on. It worked really well. And so I would say I had the best possible circumstances, but does it affect? Yes, because when you are making a decision, you're making it for the entire family if you have an issue with one of the employees that's married to another one of your employees.
Absolutely. And I think we all know somebody, we all have friends that have maybe experimented with relationships in the workplace. From my perspective, I think it is really just, you've got to, first of all, it has to be a choice, right?
True.
If you're going to start hooking up with your boss, make sure that's your choice. Make sure that you fully understand that at some point you are probably going to have to choose between the relationship and between the workspace. I think it's very hard to do both. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it is. My husband, I was really lucky. My husband came and worked with us, and he worked with us for about 7 years. And having him there and really seeing him grow, and flourish at the office, I got to know him on a whole different level. And I think he got to know me and really learn about what I do on that really granular level that he never knew before, even though we'd already been together for almost 20 years. So we really got to know each other better, and I think it enhanced our relationship, but it was certainly taxing from time to time. I think because I never put work away. I'm always working. So the fact that he was with me and he was like a right-hand person at our company, I was always wanting to talk to him about work. I had no boundaries, and he was just finally...
It can be too much.
Yeah.
You had no boundaries, Dawn?
I have a hard time with that. Yeah.
I so admire the couples that can work together and flourish. I've got great friends, and the husband is a fantastic trial lawyer. His wife manages their practice. It is one of the most successful plaintiffs firms in Dallas. And I just think that's great. I could never do that. My husband and I could not work together. And I think for a lot of people, there has to be a boss, right? I think in a relationship, certainly the goal is to strive to be equal partners in everything. In the workplace, somebody has to be the boss, right?
Yeah.
Most definitely. And when you say about working, so Steve and I have been married for 36 years, sorry. 36 years.
Get that right.
Yes, you better get
Lisa.
that right.
And so, I've always had the professional career, and he's had the, roofing, construction, built our homes, built some businesses. So it's very, a very different industry. And one time we were trying to cut a deal to go on a vacation, and he was like, "You can do it if you'll help me roof this house." It was obviously years ago. I did. The pitch was so steep. He's so agile doing his thing.
You were not on the roof with
I was
him.
on the roof of a house, and I just, and he's a perfectionist, and I am like, we cannot work together. So the fact that you and your husband can work together so well, like, that's huge.
I don't know if he would agree with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think, I thought it was great. And I think he thought that it was great to an extent too. But he had to work with both me and my partner. So that was challenging for him. And my partner and I are equals. So
managing that those personalities.
yeah. So that was a little bit challenging. So I just think, like you said, Kellye, I think when it comes to making a decision about whether or not you're going to get involved in a relationship like that, and let's be real, relationships kind of pop up without really thinking about them.
Sure. It's not always a conscious choice to make. Sometimes the chemistry is just there. I just think it's really important to know that, I've got a great friend. She started dating somebody in the workplace 10 years ago. She left the workplace in order to keep the relationship going. The relationship is still going. I think it's very hard to expect to have both, right? Am I going to keep continuing to work and grow and foster a relationship in that space? It doesn't always work out. I think we hear more of sort of the tragic stories of it not working out than vice versa, right?
Right. And as a boss, right, you have to protect the other employees too. Your job is not only to make sure work is getting done, but you have to make sure other people in the working environment are feeling comfortable, are thriving. That's my goal anyway. I want the people that work with us to thrive. And relationships, if they go badly, that can be bad for not just the people in the relationship, but also the people that work with the people that are in that relationship. So I think you really have to take that into consideration. We've thought about having policies. We've thought about trying to make sure that it's one way or the other. Are we going to accept people working together that are in relationships or not? Can you prevent it? Not really. And then how do you set parameters on it?
Well, I think that's the first thing I thought of, right? Most workplaces, especially in corporate America, do have HR policies that strictly prohibit that simply because it can be very messy. And so I think as a business owner, whether you make that decision to have policies in place and then you have to deal with ramifications if the policies aren't followed, or not having policies and hoping for the best, what have you found with your firm works the best?
I think hoping for the best is always a bad it's always a bad place to start. If you're running a business with quite a few folks, we've got 20 lawyers now, and you have to plan for situations like that. You have to set boundaries, and sexual harassment in the workplace is real too, and it has to be a consensual thing. But your bosses, so you kind of want to stay out of it all. It like you said, it's kind of messy. It's definitely messy.
Well, when you said relationships, it made me think, coworkers get sideways with one another, and it can totally undermine, and they're not even they're not even in a relationship from that standpoint. But you've got two coworkers that maybe are good friends and rocking along and doing well, and then they fall away. Like, that impacts the office environment.
Absolutely.
So you take it to the next level, and they're emotionally connected. like you have total upheaval when that happens, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And one person can affect so many others. I mean, if you have one person that is somehow gotten sideways and they are a big personality, that it ripples throughout the entire office. So, I mean, we're talking about relationships and we started out talking about romantic relationships, but just we work so closely together in this field. You know, what we're doing is very serious, hard work. We're dealing with trauma that people have gone through. They are talking to us about those things. I mean, I was just having a call with a client on the way in, and these are people's lives that we're dealing with. You know, we're not just signing contracts. We're dealing with a lot of things that have happened that have really emotionally impacted those people. And that emotional trauma is really passed on to the person that they're talking to, if you care, right? And all the people that we have working with us care deeply about what they do. So just dealing with that information, you have to rely on your coworkers. You have to kind of talk about those things and really to be able to kind of process it and really get the best out of the case, to present it in the best way possible. You have to have those relationships around you to support you.
Yeah, well said, because you said it earlier, you're working with your coworkers, spending more time with them than you are with your family.
You are.
So you got to love it. You got to be able to feel like you're contributing and feeling a sense of growth. So, you know, what's the answer? No more personal relationships at the office.
I think it's such a fine line between you want to foster and grow. Now we've moved away from romantic relationships and we are just talking about relationships and growing friendships, working closely with your colleagues. And I think it is just this fine line of it's important to have great cohesion. It's also important to, regardless of whether it's a romantic relationship or not, it's important to leave your personal life, the drama, the negative aspects of whatever you may be going through. They just don't always belong in the workplace, right?
They don't, but the reality is they come into the workplace. And how do you deal with that? I mean, I know that there are lots of relationships at our office, that close relationships where they really share a lot with each other. I mean, they're friendships. Yeah, that are fostered. And when you're going through something hard at home, it impacts your work. And sometimes it's easy to talk about it. But, you know, what we just do not tolerate at all is drama in the workplace, gossip in the workplace. It's a cancer is what it is.
Well, and that starts at the top, right? Would you agree? Like if the folks at the top aren't honoring that, it's going to be a problem, you know, throughout the organization. So when you really try to set those standards in place, then I think that it fosters healthier relationships across the board. And I think it fosters knowing where the line is.
Yeah.
Well, I think we would be remiss to talk about relationships in the workplace if we didn't also talk about the double standard that exists for women getting into romantic relationships in the workplace. And I think that it is much more accepted and probably more common for men to get in certain romantic relationships in the workplace, and sometimes we just expect that. And when a woman does it, I think there is a double standard, and we expect more from the woman, or we expect the woman to not have, you know, gone down that path and to be able to keep things separately. What's with the double standard?
So, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. I don't know why there's such a double standard about that. I mean, that's cultural. It's absolutely cultural, that has been around since, you know, women started working to begin with, right? Working outside of the home to begin with. And if you're trying to deal with that cultural aspect, I don't know what we can do to improve that, but just try to be equal when we're, you know, if you're in a position of power and you are able to impact people on these levels, when they're in these relationships, when they come to your attention, you have to treat people equally. You just have to. I mean, it starts with you.
That just reminded me of, the saying that with great power comes great responsibility. And so is it unfair? Sure. But I think if a woman makes the decision, or even if it's not a conscious choice, but finds herself in a relationship in the workplace, know that you are going to be under a microscope. You will be scrutinized way more than the man. Do we want to work to change that? Of course. But is it harder to actually put those changes into real time? Yes. And so I think you have to own your own stuff and just know that if you make, for whatever, whether it's a choice or whether it just happens, you've got to know that I think the microscope is going to be more on the woman than the man.
I mean, Fannie Willis, perfect example, right? Fulton County DA, and that just the relationship that grew in the case involving Trump. I mean, she's in the thick of it right now. I mean, almost has gotten the whole case thrown out because of that relationship. And would that have happened if it was really the male that was the DA and it was a female district attorney, assistant district attorney? I don't know.
It makes you wonder, right? I think we can safely assume, yes, there's that double standard. But when I first heard that story, I just could not help but think, gosh, why would she do that? This is arguably one of the biggest cases in the history of our country. There is so much on the line. You do have to be above reproach. You do have to be, you can't allow yourself to fall into the tale as old as time, getting into a workplace relationship, because it does make people question.
It makes people question. And then I also think you potentially end up in a place where you justify in your own mind when you end up in a scenario that is questionable. If you're going down that path, then you justify and separate it. So I can only think that she was like, I know my job. I can do my job. I am crystal clear on what needs to happen here. But obviously, outwardly, like there's question, because you're wondering if she can really do it to the full potential, because emotions are involved. You cannot be emotional when you are so responsible for an entire county or whatever you're responsible for. You have to be prepared to answer to those people. So, we'll see where it all shakes out.
I mean, that's the thing is separating this profession, being a lawyer. You really have to be able to separate your emotions from your cases. And that's a big ask. I mean, how is that even possible? Well, it's an unreasonable expectation.
True.
But nonetheless, it is an expectation. I mean, you have to have an objective view of the facts to be able to present the case in the best manner. You just have to. And if you're having this input or this extraneous, wave of publicity and emotion and all of that, it's going to distract from the true issues. And people on the other side, they're going to use everything they can. 100%. They were going to use everything that they can to win, just like you're using everything that you can to win. So if you're putting yourself in that situation, you're just not doing right by your client. And it's hard, but it's true.
Think it really goes back to, you've got to understand, if you find yourself in a workplace romantic relationship, you got to know at some point the relationship is not going to work, or that job for you isn't going to work. It's hard to do both.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, for generally most people, I think it's hard to even relate to Fannie and being the DA and the case and everything. So here's the way that I relate to it, is because I work in legal. I can handle stress. I can handle long days. I can do all of that. But if you have children, and if your children have ever ended up in litigation, like we did through a car accident and insurance and all of that business, I have to tell you, I basically folded. Like, my daughter was being deposed. My husband was being deposed. The insurance company provided the attorney. And, even though I had all this exposure and I knew what was involved in the process, and I knew that, I guess in my heart of hearts, I knew that it would shake out fine, but still, I was not composed to deal with that. So when you're looking at it from the standpoint of, how could I ever relate to like people in these high powered positions and what they're doing, and they make poor choices, but this is what they're doing, and how are they able to function? I honestly, then I question, like, how do they function correctly?
Well, the view is good from the cheap seats, right? It's
Oh,
easy
yeah.
to sit back and think, I would never do that. I would never find myself in a position where somebody could be questioning my integrity or think that I've compromised my work and my reputation for a romantic relationship or whatever kind of relationship may be impacting you. I just, it's easy to think I would never put myself in that position, but I think being prepared and being able to recognize, okay, we're going down a path that maybe isn't going to be great for me, or we're going down a path and you've got to play the scenario out.
Right. What's the next step? What could happen
Yes.
related to this? And what choices am I willing to make in relation to this experience? I mean, you've got to make those choices, and it's better to think about it ahead of time than to think about it when you're in the thick of it, right? I mean, that's the whole
True.
thing. You've got to make those choices ahead of time.
As lawyers, I think, and as good businesswomen, you do have to be able to compartmentalize, right? There's a reason why, especially a lot of plaintiffs' lawyers suffer from secondary trauma response, because they are lawyers that represent clients that have been catastrophically injured or killed, and you're dealing with family members. You have to feel that, but you do have to be able to protect yourself and compartmentalize and think, okay, I've got a job to do. I can't feel all the feels, but you're still human at the end of the day.
You actually do have to feel all the feels to be good at it, to really be able to tell that story to a jury. You have to feel the feels, but you have to be able to recover from it as well. So that's, we've talked
That's a
about
great
health and well-being and all of that. You give so much in this profession to do the best for your clients that you have to be able on the back end to recover from it. However you're able to, you have to recover from it, but you got to go all in. It's not a partial in this profession. You got to go all in. And if you're not all in, then you're not doing the best for your clients.
And I think that's what separates truly the good trial lawyers, the good businesswoman, being able to go all in and then maintain and recover and take care of yourself. Make sure that you're not going all in and completely depleting everything within you for your clients, for your firm, for your colleagues, without being able to fill yourself back up.
Yeah, you have to have a way to fill yourself back up. That's for sure.
Most definitely. Well, I would love feedback on this topic because we touched on so many things. What's our email?
Our email, hello at ladiesinlaw.com.
Okay. hello@ladiesinlaw.com. If you have any comments, we would love to hear them. At some point on a show in the future, we will just address some of the comments that are shared. Good, bad, and otherwise. We will not discriminate.
That's right.
Yeah, I want to hear the stories that worked. If you got into a relationship in the workplace, the ones that thrived, maybe the ones that didn't, what can we learn from that? Please let us know.
Yes, most definitely. All right. Till next time.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Ladies in Law. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to shake things up in law and business. Don't forget to hit subscribe and let us know what you think. Spread the word and share this podcast with your network. Follow us on socials for all the behind-the-scenes fun and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep rocking it, keep breaking the mold, and as always, keep aspiring to inspire.